Congressman Tom Reed is on the House Ways and Means Committee, Republican from New York. Congressman, what do you think of this report now that the Treasury Secretary wants to talk about the debt limit, have this thing settled earlier rather than later, so everyone's not on the brink of trying to raise this thing in the middle of the heat sort of thing? What do you think?
Well, I appreciate, Neil, the opportunity to be on, and I appreciate what the Treasury Secretary is trying to do, is to get ahead of this and to have the conversation, the debate, in order to deal with this in a proactive, preventive way. I think that's a responsible way to govern.
All right, but when he is saying just a simple debt limit hike, don't attach anything to it, just raise it, what do you say? Are you for that?
I think there's going to have to be something attached to it in regards to either spending reductions to offset the increase or some type of good government reform so that we start the path to get out of this national debt crisis that we find ourselves in that's represented in the debt ceiling limit itself.
Are you afraid that some of your Democratic colleagues, for example, they say they've offered Republicans an olive branch to go ahead and they would support a debt limit increase so that other things can get done, that if this gets to be heated delay, then everything that you want to get done, including a rework of the health care law and tax cuts and all, it can't get done if all of a sudden we're risking shutting the government down? What do you say?
Well, there are some folks on the other side that clearly are just there to obstruct, to say no, because they feel that politically is the winning strategy. From my perspective, the Democrats I align myself with, the Problem Solvers Caucus, Josh Gottheimer and I co-chaired Republican Democrats, 40 of us working together. We're about governing. We're about getting to yes. And I will tell you, that seems to me to be better politics, and it's good for the American people. That's what we should be focusing on, not this obstruction and division that a lot of the rhetoric coming out of D.C. is supporting right now.
But if you're open, Congressman, to attaching something to a vote on raising the debt limit, wouldn't that be the same thing?
Well, no, that's talking about reforming the process, reforming the institution, because you can't maintain the status quo. Raising the debt ceiling for the sake of increasing the debt ceiling with no type of reform just means we're going to continue to borrow to pay for the next from the next generation to pay for the costs of today. That's not responsible governing.
But this is about monies already committed that Congress has already approved. It's not about future spending, right?
Well, but this is an opportunity to enact some reforms that get us going in that direction. And that's an opportunity I think we can seize for the American people, because the status quo of continuing to borrow to pay for the programs that we have on the books just is not sustainable.
All right. Do you envision that there's enough support within your party to do just that, though? And do you worry about a possible government shutdown? Or do you welcome it, as the president seemed to intimate just last month?
No, obviously I worry about a default. I worry about a shutdown. I think we can do better for the American people than that. And when I reach out to the 20 Democrats folks, for example, in the Problem Solvers Caucus, I see people want to engage in reforms. They recognize we've got to pay our debts. I recognize we've got to pay our debts. But going forward, shutdown and defaulting is just something that is not responsible or good for the American people who we represent in Washington.
Real quickly, Congressman, Chuck Grassley and Jody Ernst, the Republican senators from Iowa, say that a repeal is unlikely. And getting every Republican on board regarding a health care rework is proving very, very tough. That seems to be their way of telegraphing that this thing in the Senate, despite what happened in the House, might not be repeatable. What do you think?
Well, you know, I've given up trying to predict what the Senate's going to do. They seem to wait till the last minute and then eventually do take action. And it's a body that can move very fast, and it's a body that can move very slow. We've done our job in the House.
But if they came up with something, Congressman, that does not call for an outright repeal right away, just a fix, that would not be good enough for you, right? So if it came back to you, it wouldn't be good enough.
They would have to deal with the Affordable Care Act, so I don't know how you do that without repealing the provisions that get us to that point. But the point I would stress is, what are you proposing that's going to help the American people out of the crisis we find ourselves under the Obamacare Affordable Care Act? If that's what we're talking about, I'm open to a conversation about that, but I don't know how you get there without repealing those provisions of the Affordable Care Act that are causing the problem we see in the marketplace.
Congressman, thank you very much for taking the time.